button. I have done that now. So we are being recorded. Good morning. My name is Richard Wexler. I'm Executive Director of the National Coalition for Child Protection Reform, and I chair the Subcommittee on City and State Procedures of the Philadelphia City Council Special Committee on Child Separations. This meeting is being recorded. I will send out the recording to the committee and post it online. And since I don't know yet what the URL will be, I will invite anyone who wants to see the recording to email me at rwexler@nccpr.org. And I just got a note from Deanna Ramsey, and I'm going to unmute her now because apparently, there we go.
I'm fine now, thank you.
Okay, and I will do it with Mr. Jordan as well, just to be sure. Okay, I hope we're all right now. I am joined by one of the other members of the committee, Robin Cooper, President of the Commonwealth Association of Supervisors and Administrators, and I hope we will be joined by Attorney Nadeem Bizarre, the other member of the subcommittee, as we go along. We are also joined by one member of the full committee so far. Others are welcome. That is Sheriff Bilal. And they are, of course, always welcome to join us in our discussion this morning. And of course, anyone else is welcome to post comments in the chat. Now, I'm not great at multitasking, so I may not always see them, but I will absolutely review them after the meeting and copy them. This is one of a series examining different city and state procedures. Next week at this time, 3 experts are going to guide us in a discussion of issues involving child welfare and substance use. In each case, I will send out the meeting notice a couple of days ahead. And again, please email me if you're not on the list to receive those notices and want to be. This week, the topic is false allegations against school personnel. So we've also invited Jerry Jordan, President of the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, and Deanna Ramsey, Principal of the Philadelphia Juvenile Justice Services Center School. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin Cooper to start our discussion. Oh, and Robin is on mute, so I'm going to have to, sorry about that. There we go. Please go ahead, Robin.
Good morning to everyone. First, I'd like to thank Richard for even having this, what we in the school district think is an important topic, because it is just affecting so many members. And I'm definitely glad to see my union leader counterpart, Jerry, here, because this is something that's near and dear to both of our hearts. And it really speaks just in regards to the Sandusky Act, which requires that everybody is a mandated reporter, and which in the city of Philadelphia, it has become where everything is reported. And what's happening is people are being falsely accused of child abuse due to interactions with children. And when I say interactions, I'm talking about breaking up fights. If you have to physically touch a child so that they don't, let's say, destroy a classroom full of 32 computers or 1 computer. Anytime you come into physical contact, then everybody in that room is required to report it to the hotline. And so it's putting our members at risk of losing their entire careers. And we don't think that this is what was meant by the Sandusky Act. We clearly understand the seriousness of the act. We want all children to be safe, but the implementation of the Sandusky Act is something that is not saving any children. In fact, it's harming adults, because when the adults are accused, then there's a process where they are abruptly removed from their position. They are reassigned to the position of the school district headquarters. And once they're reassigned there, in some cases, if the case goes smoothly, they're probably looking at about 30 days, if the case goes smoothly. In other cases, they are there for up to 3 months and sometimes longer. And so, we have had administrators to resign because of the stress of being reassigned and you literally losing almost everything that you have built your entire life on. And I'm talking about cases where it's not child abuse, but it is in the course of a day that you are doing your job. And not only is it affecting administrators, it is affecting, I'm sure Jerry can speak to this, a number of his members, from teachers to SSAs. It's just affecting the school district as a whole. And we're particularly concerned in Philadelphia because it's the same act in Pennsylvania, and we're wondering why only in Philadelphia we are implementing it to the degree that we're implementing. So there seems to be some discrimination in how we are actually going by this act. So it's our belief that if this is something that's in place, everybody should be following the same thing. But this is not occurring in the suburban school districts. It is really only occurring in Philadelphia, but we really can't get answers on how to go about changing this. And everybody is still being removed. And we're talking a good 4 years, 4 or 5 years, 6 years. I don't even know how long, but we just believe that something has to really give way to ensure people's livelihood. So I'll stop there. I know I've said a lot, but I'll stop there. But this is something that's really impacting us as a whole in the school district of Philadelphia. And unless you have walked that walk, I mean, I have people who literally cry, and they cry every day. And in some cases, they will sit down to at district headquarters for a couple of months, only to find out that their case fell through the cracks.
Yes.
Between the school district and also DHS, nobody is assigned. Nobody has come out. Nobody knows anything. And then after they go through all that turmoil, then they have another turmoil to go through with the district, as the district has to follow up and do a complete separate investigation. So it's a number of things going on. So our issue is we're not talking about child abuse. We are talking about cases where responsible adults, hear me carefully, responsible adults, when all else fails, they have to touch children. I will never, ever not stop a fight. I will never, ever, watch someone plummet and beat up on the victim. I look for the victim, and I feel like it is my job to make certain that that victim is safe at all costs. So, but now what's happening is no one, for fear of their careers, will touch a child. And, I guess I would be fearful for my career as well. But we've got to do something. So if nothing else, just having this conversation is a major step in the right direction.
Okay, let's continue the conversation. Ms. Ramsey or Mr. Jordan, whoever wants to pick up from here.
Since my president spoke first, I guess I can just chime in on what she has been saying.
Okay.
As administrators of the School District of Philadelphia, we have climate managers. And we also have assistant principals. And if you don't have a climate manager, 9 out of 10 schools should have an assistant principal there. They are the employees that really work on the climate and safety of the building. And so when things arise, such as a dispute between two young people, sometimes someone has to get in the middle of it to make sure that everyone is safe in this situation. However, if the person who has been safety care trained for the district goes in and supports the incident, 9 out of 10 times they're going to be called to be investigated because the person might have touched the child inappropriately, meaning grabbed the arm to try to make sure that both kids were safe. When you're doing a safety care move and it depends on 2 people, you might not have 2 people at the same time there to do the safety move. So do you wait for support while a child is being hurt on the ground, or do you jump in as a human being to stop the assault that was going on. And so our members have to make that decision. And sometimes it's very quick, especially when you're looking at high school students, right? Many of our climate managers who have been sitting downtown due to allegations was around the high school student.
Yeah.
Who then said, you know, if drugs come into the school and they are following a lead, meaning that they're not sure, but kids have told you that, I'm gonna use myself, Dina Ramsey has drugs on her. When they go to do and talk to Dina Ramsey and find out that Dina Ramsey truly has drugs on them, then next thing you know, they're being pulled out because Dina Ramsey now has accused them of doing some type of assault. And on the cameras, there's nothing there from to and from where they were to the dean's office or to the school police office. And that person still is sitting downtown because the district provided a safety plan that the person is removed, and it can go between 6 to 8 months. Dr. Cooper is being very nice about 3 months. Many of our climate managers have been out of the building for 8+ months. And then the school district will then say, you know, we have hit our threshold of holding this person employed, and now we're coming to the table because they want to recommend termination, even though it has not been deemed that this person has abused a child. Mm-hmm. So I live in the Philadelphia Juvenile Justice School. So I understand where kids are here, 24-hour care, and there are resident counselors or DHS workers who are watching them throughout the day. But usually 9 out of 10 between 8 o'clock and 3:30. And if you're in the business of doing your job and this camera's all throughout the school, that's an easy, quick investigation to see that someone did not abuse a child. But to sit months downtown waiting for DHS to conduct their investigation and to finish it, and then the district now has to bring the administrator of that school to investigate the climate manager or the AP, or even we've had some principals who have sat down town because the child was in mental health crisis, and then the parent sometimes does not want to believe the schools, regardless of, you know, how true it could be. They've had some issues themselves as children in the system, going through the system. So they might have trust issues with the district, right? So they don't believe that what happened truly happened, even when you do show the footage of the person escorting your child just to safety. They still want to file charges against you.
Thank you. Before we move to Mr. Jordan, I just want to introduce Nadim Bazar, the third member of the subcommittee who has now joined us. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I'd just like to follow up and give a few examples of cases that our members that our members have lived through. You know, I will begin by saying that you know, our educators, they're trained and they love to work with kids. And so it really turns their lives upside down when they are accused of harming a child. And they know that they can lose their job and their license if they harm children. So you can imagine the psychological impact that it has on people when they are accused. And I'm going to begin by sharing a few examples with you very briefly of cases that will represent what many of our members have gone through, unfortunately. I'm going back about 4 or 5 years, and we had the case of a teacher, highly respected teacher in the school, who had been at the school for a number of years, who was a teacher leader and was respected by the principal and the staff. And one afternoon, and it was near the end of the school year, it was in June, first grade little boy uh, became very disruptive in the first grade class, and the teacher leader heard the commotion, went into the classroom, and she knew the little boy, and she, with the teacher's permission, took him out of the classroom to her office so that he could calm down. And he calmed down, and the school went through dismissal as they normally do at the end of the day. And the school year ended in June. And when the teacher returned after the summer break, the very first day, she was greeted with a letter that her principal gave her, and she was reassigned down to the administration building because the guardian, the boy's guardian, who is his aunt, made an allegation that the teacher hit the boy. And of course, she was quite devastated, and she reported. She called the union to ask for advice, and she stayed down there for several months. So much so that the faculty held a fundraiser in order to raise money to pay for an attorney for her. The teacher still got no movement. There was no hearing that had taken place, and she was just sitting downtown for all of those months, waiting for her case to be heard. The principal had been interviewed by the investigator before September, and he saw the incident. He saw her when she removed the child, and that was exactly what she should have done. And the principal said there was no assault. And nonetheless, the principal's word meant nothing. I personally went to the school and I met with the principal to ask him about the case. And he said, I said that I witnessed the situation. Nothing happened to the child. The child is a child that has special needs. And the principal said there had been a number of incidents during the year. And he was accustomed to the teacher leader stepping in and removing a child who was having a bad moment and calming down the child so that the rest of the class could go about their work. And his word meant nothing. Well, the teacher, to make a long story short, she had been out for a number of months, and the school district decided that they were not going to continue paying her. She was going to lose her job because the DHS had not made a ruling. And so that became a separate fight with the union in order to make sure that she got paid. And she told me that her husband had been laid off, and she had 2 teenage children, and people work because they need to earn a living. And so, she just could not stand to have that happen to her. Ultimately, after the teacher returned back to work in March or April of that year. So she was out from the beginning of the school year until March or April. And needless to say, she has not been the same. It's not anything that she, is going to forget. It was something that affected her entire family. I'm going to give you another example of a case. A teacher was accused of harming a child February 23rd. And on March 30th, she was indicated. And the case was decided and the DHS investigator never interviewed the teacher or the witnesses. The decision was based solely upon the accuser's statement. The hearing, the school district held a hearing with her for not attaining job requirements on May 10th. And that was because she was indicated on the child abuse status and with her background check. And she was suspended without pay from the school district. On January 30th, now this case started in February 23rd, if you recall, I said, on January 30th of the following year, DHS informed the teacher that they were dropping the charges against her. It's nearly 1 year later. And February 28th, the teacher was exonerated and restored to service after 9.5 months of being suspended without pay. And during that time, as a union, I asked our attorneys to look at the law because, you know, there's a problem with suspending people without pay and then they are exonerated. They've lost their salaries and it's a hardship. And our lawyer found that the school district was interpreting the law differently than it was intended. And so therefore we fought and got back pay for these teachers. However, and they no longer are suspending people without pay, but if they are indicated, they can have a hearing, do have a hearing, and they can lose their jobs, and many of them do. The last case that I will share with you is, this is a non-teacher, and but a person who works in a school, and we have many of them who work in schools who are not teachers. And I wanted to point that out because I don't want anyone to think that this is just something that affects teachers. Many of our non-instructional personnel work very closely with the children, and they too are accused. This person was, DHS determined that the individual was indicated and therefore was unable to work with children. And that occurred in March of the year, and April 11th, a hearing was held with the school district, who then determined that because a person was indicated, that he would be terminated, and he was terminated. And in May, the DHS reversed its indicated status. And so the individual was returned to service, but think of all of the psychological trauma that he went through and his family. So, those are just examples of things that, are happening, have happened. And, Robin and Deanna both, cited pretty much the same thing that I just shared with you. It has caused a chilling effect, as I think Deanna pointed out, that when teachers and other educators see children fighting, their initial response is not to get involved because I may be accused of harming a child. And if I have to pull children apart, if I pull one, that child could very well say, he pulled me, but he didn't touch her. He hit me, he hurt my arm, or whatever allegation they may very well make. So I think, so much has to be considered when making a decision about whether you do something in order to stop a fight for the safety of the children, as opposed to letting them just fight, because I'm afraid that if I step in to break up a fight, that I'm going to be charged with assaulting a child. Thank
Can
you.
I add something, Jerry? You know, when you think about the Sandusky Act and then you have the Prison Rape Elimination Act, I really believe it should be almost like an educator's act, right? Because
Yes.
it seems to me, when you look at both of those areas, the Sandusky, it was around him volunteering and bringing children into his home and having time that was outside of the, you know, frame of the day, I'm gonna say, right? And then you have the Prison Rape Elimination Act, where people who are in detention have to have some kind of safety net over them so that they don't get abused by people that are not in the good intentions of them. So here in this educator world, where there, unless it's something where you took a child into a room with no other person with you type of thing, most of it is on camera and most of it is around people that's there. And so now you have witnesses, you have 3 or 4 witnesses that was there. You have a school police lieutenant, a school police sergeant. You have the noontime aides, or they're now called climate specialists. You have all these people writing documentation that says that this did not occur, but still the person is removed. Still this person has DHS in their lives, and the allegation takes a year to be removed. Am I not correct on that? When you are looking for another job somewhere, it becomes that it's been reported. It might not have a fine in there, but if I'm an employer looking at you, I might not even accept your application, because you have been found to have done something to a child, even though it's not, you know, the investigation is not finished.
And
So,
by the way, that is an issue. I just want to jump in and say that is an issue we're going to deal with. We expect to deal with in 2 weeks, when we're going to talk about the whole issue of the central registry and findings on that and the need for due process there. And I see April Lee is nodding. Community Legal Services, of course, has done a wonderful report on that. And I hope that they will join us for that. I just want to be sure and ask Nadeem, do you have any questions?
Mute.
There
There
we
you
go.
go. Yeah, now I can unmute. You know,
Perfect.
so thanks everyone, and I apologize for being a little bit late here. And then when I tried to unmute, it felt like I actually had a mask covering my mouth. I couldn't speak. So what I find alarming is that in this day and age, where information can be gathered and or processed at the push of a button, light speed, that there isn't, I'm going to use a legal term, due process, but that there isn't a process for an expeditious decision on what was okay to do in the hallway when breaking up a fight. Jerry, you know, the first thing that jumped into my mind is that 2 people that might be engaged in a fight, that there could be an allegation that the teacher only grabbed one person and didn't grab the other. Well, of course the teacher only grabbed one person, because if you control one person, you can, for the most part, control the fight. And 2, how do you grab 2 people who are fighting at the same time unless you're, you know, got gigantic wingspan and muscles coming out of your ears? It's just not likely to happen. So by controlling one person, you've got a high chance of controlling the situation. So I never like an expression, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't, but it really does feel like that's where things are when what Robin described and Deanna described. I'm alarmed as an attorney that there isn't some expeditious due process in getting teachers back into the building to do what they do best and what they're hired to do and what they're underpaid to do and all, you know, all the above. So that was my initial inclination. The other thing is that it seems that one, you have video access in almost every turn of a hallway now in a school or in any public building. So why not, let's go to the videotape, so to speak. That would allow for prompt decisions. And two, because certainly if a child was unnecessarily harmed, you better believe that video would hit the news media pretty quickly, right? And would be on YouTube and whatever else people use now. Secondly, a prompt interview with somebody that allows that player, that teacher, to get back on the field and start doing good seems like that would be fruitful. So I'm alarmed. I don't know that I appreciated what it was like on the ground level. So thank you very much for sharing. And that being said, I have to apologize for being late, because the thought that you guys were sharing this kind of important information that I was late to the call embarrasses me a little bit. But what a practical way of expressing everything. And I apologize for that long-winded 2 cents.
Just a reminder, this is being recorded. You'll be able to see the entire thing very shortly after this meeting is done. I'd just like to ask, how does this all affect the students? When I could imagine teachers and administrators are suddenly in effect disappearing for months at a time. And how does it affect the students in the whole educational process? Anybody who wants to come in on that?
So, climate managers, they're the big key piece of the PBIS of the school positive behavior intervention system. And so they build relationships with young people. Young people feel safe when they see adults of authority that are walking the hallways, talking to them, making sure everybody is, as safe as possible in their school. And even to and from school, like they're outside in the morning times. As teachers are walking in, they're already at their posts. They already, if you're at elementary school, the kids are outside in the playground or the yard, and they're playing around, and the climate manager is there. The AP is there. And so, when you take and remove them from a building for 8 months, one of these comprehensive high schools, we're fighting now to make sure that we have a climate manager in every school. If you take one away, then who's doing the work? The principal, I get it. We have to do it all. But to try to do it all is just not, it's impossible. It's an impossible job to do, to make sure the instruction is going on, as well as the safety and security of a building. You need support. So when that climate manager or that AP is removed from there, it's all left on you. And then children do not feel safe. You might start seeing a high number of young people not attending school because they don't feel safe, because that person that they believe in is no longer there.
Just quickly, Zoom is going to cut us off automatically at about 11:55. So we don't have too much time left. I wanted to get in one other question and then go to a question that I saw Nadeem post in the chat. All of you also, in addition to being on the receiving end of reports, are also mandated reporters in your own right. Do you feel pressure on that end to file reports when you don't really think they should be filed because of the pressure of being mandated reporters, either on colleagues, on parents, whoever? Anybody want to address that?
Absolutely, because if they don't follow the whole mandated reporting piece, then they're written up by their superiors. So everybody is really covering, regardless of how they feel, or I shouldn't say feel, what they believe. Like, child abuse. And if you really follow the act says that someone acted in a reckless and malicious manner. So those two words would show you whether it's child abuse or whether it's a person acting in the course of their responsibility. So no one is paying attention to those words. I would have had to act in some sort of reckless. I broke up the fight, slammed the child against the wall and breaking up the fight. But because I moved them apart, then no matter what, if it's 5 adults standing there, 5 adults need to have contacted that hotline. That is not child abuse. Our concern is not the act. Our concern is how Philadelphia particularly is implementing the act. And again, this is not happening in other places. And so if you are using your urban city to say, okay, well, we need to like basically destroy the careers of, you're not going to be able to get anyone here to work because no one wants to put their livelihood in jeopardy. So for me, I have folks who are going out trying for early retirement, taking a loss at because they don't have the years in and all of those things. But it's more important after you've sat somewhere for 3 months, knowing you're innocent and really, you become almost a piranha. And when you come back to school, you've lost the trust of your staff, the trust of the students. And then when you talk to the parents say, oh, you were sitting downtown because of child abuse. And it's not child abuse. I did the right thing. I did my responsibility. So then you have the flip side. You have folks where it is survival to the fittest. They say, I'm no longer going to touch anyone's child. I am no longer going to put myself out there. And it sounds cruel, but can we blame them?
Okay, I noticed that April Lee had her hand up, and since we have a smaller group than usual, we have room to kind of open it out to some of the people who have joined to watch. So Ms. Lee, if there's something you wanted to add, please go ahead.
Yeah, yes. First of all, thank you for opening this up and allowing me to be here. But I wanted to elaborate on part of the question you just asked, and I'm asking from a parent, right? So I work for CLS. I'm a parent advocate, but I have lived experience in the child welfare system. So when I'm listening to you guys talk, I'm also hearing some of the same things that parents go through unjustly when it comes down to mandated reporting. And instead of losing your job, your rights are terminated in some instances. When it comes down to unfounded report, the child line, the abuse charges, founded or unfounded, is a real issue. So my question to you guys is to kind of further Richard's question. Do you understand the correlation of both issues when it comes down to mandated reporting, not only for the teachers, but also the children, and to further the understanding of mandated reporting? If you know, inside the child welfare system, most of it is poverty. It's not necessarily neglect. It's more so the child came in dirty, let me call DHS. It's more so they had a parent act a little weird, let me call DHS. So those same investigations that teachers are going through right now, parents are going through, that same year that it takes for a teacher to get their job back or a climate manager to get their job back, is that same year that this child might be removed from the parents' care. So yeah, I would like to know, can you see both sides of that? If we're really talking about the issues surrounding mandated reporting, it kind of goes both ways.
Because we're so short on time, before they answer your question, I noticed that Sheriff Bilal also had something that she wanted to pose. So I'd like to give her that chance.
Thank you. And thank you so much, because now I'm getting a real sick feeling being a child of the Philadelphia school system at my age from back then. And so I need to get to Sandusky, but my understanding is supposed to be a reckless manner, and I'm not seeing breaking up as a reckless manner. That's something we have to deal with DHS. My other thing was the false accusations of abuse become such a big deal when it's always said in, well, the teacher hit me when they broke up a fight. Is that it's like a thing that most people do here in the city. They make a false complaint, and because the city law department does not react to it or investigate it properly, then a person's career is damaged. Is that what they're doing in our schools?
Who wants to take that one?
In some cases, yes.
Wow.
Okay. And then now to circle back to April Lee's question about the idea of it cutting both ways, and whether that raises concerns in your minds as mandated reporters about calling in a call on a parent whose problem may be poverty related, for example, and whether you feel pressure to make that kind of call because you're a mandated reporter.
So, you know, the system, the school district has us, especially if the child is a child who's not attending school, we have our own processes that we must fulfill by the policies and procedures of the School District of Philadelphia. So I would have to assume, because I really don't know the case that Ms. Lee is talking about, or the cases, that when a child is not attending school, and the parent is not responsive, as the principal of a school sitting on the MTSS team, we would probably call DHS because we're not getting a response from the parent to do an investigation.
Do you think that's wise to call in a situation where it's a question of absence?
Well, if you don't move on a case like that and the children are found, and God forbid, harmed, then they look at all the other key people that was in play of the child, and usually the School District of Philadelphia gets the hit on everything. I'm just going to be honest, and I know Jerry and Robin will respond. If it's violence in the street, the gun violence that's going on right now, it's the school district problem. It's like everything falls on our steps. And so while maybe training and having DHS to come and do training for our staff to make sure that we really identify where we don't want to abuse the calling system either, right? And so maybe that might be a suggestion that we could take, or this committee can offer, of just training around what to do when you have parents that are not responsive, children who attended. We used to have truancy officers. We don't have that now. So we have to really look at what we had in the past and what we don't have now, and what we think money should really be allocated for. Because truancy officers will probably be the best thing, so that they can go out to homes and assess if something has happened before it even gets to DHS. So when you take all these different support systems out, now all you have is the school district and DHS. There's no middle ground.
Robin, you wanted to get in another comment.
Yes, I just think that anybody with false allegations of child abuse, it shouldn't be tolerated. I definitely think, you know, at a school level, most folks sit around with their teams to make certain that they are making informed choices. But then with this whole mandated reporting thing, everybody is doing what they can because they are following all of the dramatic pieces of the Sandusky Act. I mean, this man was going back and forth with children, and nobody ever said anything. So everybody's now jumping overboard, but just going back to the reckless and malicious piece for administrators. But I also don't think that children in poverty, you got to get to the bottom of it. Why isn't the child coming to school? And there are a number of teams in schools that really try to work to the bottom of things. I just personally believe that regardless, false allegations of abuse should not be tolerated in any manner whatsoever.
Just to clarify, and this is something, oh, sorry, Nadeem, you go ahead, please.
Yeah, so if it's okay, I'm going to respond to the couple of questions, and then the sheriff's point raised earlier. First of all, Sheriff, I'm a big fan of the work that you've done in getting to the position that you got to. So I'm going to answer what I think is the new trend, and by new I mean the last 20 years. I think what we've got now, when there's student involvement and a student has been accused, one, of fighting so that they might get in trouble for getting the teacher, the student has been accused, they're going to err on the side of saying, well, I was grabbed and I shouldn't have been grabbed, or that the fight didn't occur. And they're going to throw out there this opportunity to get themselves acquitted of any trouble, right? And if they decide to back down from that later on, they can always say, well, it just felt like Jerry was picking on me because he grabbed me, and that's it, right? So there's no repercussion to the false accusation. And that's important to understand, because that gives them a layer of protection, right? I've often learned that nobody is against you, they're for themselves. And so if there's a fight between two students and a teacher is involved, the first thing I'm going to do is say, why'd that teacher grab me? All of a sudden, we've shifted the focus now, right? It's on the school and not on the conflict. And that is, I don't have a cure, and I apologize for bringing up that point, because I should bring up a solution with the problem, but I don't. Other than, right, we retrain the minds of our students, but who hasn't said that 1,000 times over the last several years? But I think I think society does that initially, right? It's not me. Tell a lie first. I can always tell the truth later. And so that's a big problem. And I think it's an unenviable position for teachers that are trying to teach rather than develop a truancy situation. I think it's just a very unenviable problem, which is back to my point of, can't we get rapid due process so that we can get teachers back in there to teach? The video camera says nothing happened between the teacher and the student. The union rep says nothing happened. We don't need this immediate indication. We need immediate vindication. And that's
I
my
think before you even do the due process, I think when you actually look at the camera and you see that nothing has occurred, you don't need any process.
right. It's
Nothing
over.
occurred. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nothing occurred. And then I agree 100% with what you're saying. If it's something that then you take them through a timely process. But we're just arguing about literally doing your job and keeping children safe, because what's happening now is folks are taking their time to hoping that the children just stop on the sound of their voices, and in some cases, it doesn't work. In some cases, at the elementary level, in some cases, you have to get in between children to keep them safe. You have to do that.
If Zoom, just a reminder, again, I don't know exactly if Zoom will cut us off right on the nose, but but I just want to remind everyone, feel free to add, if you want to add more, to email me, rwexler@nccpr.info. I will circulate to the full committee immediately. Yes, go ahead.
Ernie on the line, correct? Is that is it Bazar?
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, in the Pennsylvania code, it was an area where administrators, school officials were better words, did not have to go through this scrutiny the way it's being done today. Am I not correct on that? So I'm confused, and we always bring it up. We had DHS come to one of the principals' meetings at when we all met all together, and we had the school district official there as well. And it's like they both looked at each other. I thought if we're school employees and we're making sure that kids are safe, that we're exempt from this Sandusky and this well, I'm in prison rape elimination because of the school that I'm in. But it's like we're confused about that. So where did the law change where we weren't underneath that code anymore? And I could be speaking incorrectly, but I believe it's something there that says that if you are a school employee and that you were not doing any harm, you were keeping a child safe, that you didn't have to be accused of abuse.
Yeah, so
I'm just using it, I'm summarizing. I would
Yeah.
have to go and pick it up, and that's probably what I'll do, Mr. Rexler, and pull it up so you guys can see. But I believe there's a law that keeps us safe.
So I think under the Child Protective Services Law, if there's a call made in that there was, so for example, contact, somebody's complained that a child was harmed, I think that activates the investigation that's required, that a threshold level of whether it's indicated or not indicated, and then it moves on beyond that. So there may be protective devices or statutes in place, but the Child Protective Services Law it's sort of on the other side of it. It is there to protect a child who may have been harmed. And that, I believe, truth be told, people can speak onto it as much as they want, will always trump something that's there to protect, oh, that's a bad expression, always there to protect somebody who's an adult. That
Okay.
the Child Protective Services Law will jump on the child's interest first.
It's been implied, but I just want to clarify before we go. How much has this changed in the wake of the passage of a series of laws growing out of the Sandusky scandal? I mean, was this a problem even before, or did it really explode after the passage of those laws? Anybody who wants to address that?
It exploded after the passage of the laws.
Okay. Okay. And okay, looks like I'm going to try to get Pat Albright has had her hand up for a while. There you go.
To take the discussion of the flip side, which is to say that in the work that we do, we recently heard, you having trouble hearing me?
No, we're fine.
Oh, okay. We recently got kind of the story of a mother who we had worked with, had a case herself with DHS, and she told the story of when her children were young. She was on welfare and had to do workfare jobs, and so she could not be home when her older children got home from school. And she had a granddaughter who was living with her at the time because her mother had died. And the granddaughter was hiding any letters, making sure she didn't see letters from the school saying that she wasn't attending. So I just to say that the issue of truancies can be very complicated, and mothers may very well not even know what's happening because of being, forced to take jobs outside the home and so on, and not being around to supervise your kids at critical ages. So I just wanted to bring that up because that was interesting that she also had a couple of sons who end up getting involved in selling drugs and being on the street, and she wasn't around to watch because they were so poor that they ended up on the street and ended up in jail for a couple of years. So it's a complicated situation. I think poverty is very key to all this.
Well, so far the Zoom gods are being kind. Is there anybody else who has anything they want to add before we wrap this up?
No, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming on because it is enlightening. Me being Philadelphia police officers and 14 years of investigation in child abuse and sexual assault, trust me, I know the difference with DHS and parents. It swings like whenever there's a situation that highlights something somewhere else, it begins to swing a lot deeper here than anywhere else. And so I'm clear on that. I thank y'all because, and I got to pull up that Sandusky because I need to read it a little bit more than what I have been. Thank you.
Well, again, it isn't, although it's referred to as the Sandusky Act, it's a whole set of laws that were all passed, all of them in response to a case, as I always mention when his name comes up, that involved a foster parent whose charity began as a group home.
Yep.
All right, then I thank you all again. And a reminder, we will be back next week, same time, different Zoom link. We're going to discuss issues involving child welfare and substance use. So thank you all very much for joining us, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, great job.
Thank you very much.